Hey, it's Justin, the Renegade Realtor, and I'm here to tell you why you won't be living in a tiny house. But first, I want to say I'm not opposed. I'm not exactly opposed to it. I love the spirit. I love the idea of the tiny house movement. And before I get too involved, I want to make sure if you do want to go for it, make sure you're clear on the legal distinction of what the house is and if it's legal, where it's going. It's a big deal. And there's this whole thing of the mobility of the house. Is it a mobile home? Is it a trailer? Would you like for it to be zoned as in the same way as a site-built house, where a permanent installation? You got to make sure you have all this stuff kind of ironed out, or you've thought about it, because you might not be able to permanently install a mobile home or a trailer, and you might not be able to legally park a trailer anywhere you want it to. You have to check people have HOAs. There's all kinds of things that you really want to check out. One of the biggies is the distinction of whether or not it is built according to federal or state zoning rules. Manufactured homes, which used to be mobile homes, are built based on the laws they're based on federal laws, because way back in the day, when they actually did move them around a lot, they were going state to state, and they sort of said, okay, this is too complicated. We'll federalize it, so there'll be one national code to build these structures by, and that's why a manufactured home is a special distinction. Now you have to make sure, is your tiny home a manufactured home, or is it like the modular homes, which tend to be built based on local or state codes, similar to a site-built house, a permanently built house. So most of what you see nowadays, which is called houses that are called modular, they tend to be, the assumption is that they will be built based on state building codes, like a site-built home on a permanent foundation, the old school, old-fashioned thing. And a manufactured home, which is typically a double wide or a single wide, those are they're a different classification, and they're a federal classification of building. And you have to make sure first off, how your tiny home was built. Was it built according to federal or state building codes? And then you have to make sure that if you want to put it anywhere for any period of time, you have to make sure that that's going to be okay where you want to install it. Make sure that whether it's whether your house it's okay to have a house that was built on federal manufactured housing codes, or whether it needs to be with local state codes. So having said that, I wanted to get back to the issue of what the hell do you want a tiny house for? I think it kind of gets into this virtue signaling thing, where when I see all this excitement and interest in tiny houses, I wonder, is something weird about it? Are you rebelling against your parents? Are you trying to say, is there a holier than thou kind of virtue signaling, where I'm better than you because I don't have the big foundation footprint that you have, and you're using up all this energy, or you're ostentatious, or you're ruining the planet because of your big house? And I think the fact is, you are being more responsible by being in a tiny house. I just don't think you can do it and keep your sanity. I think if you get into a tiny house with your spouse, one cold, long winter, or one hot summer, and you're just cooped up in that little thing, and your AC's on or the heat's on, and you're trying to stay warm, or you're trying to stay cool, and you're crammed in there, and it's like you decide you want to play the guitar, or you decide you want to start a hobby and make a mess somewhere. You can't do it, and your spouse is going to go nuts. And now if you're living alone, okay, but same deal. It's like solitary confinement. It's too damn small, and And I think I thought about growing up, and as a child, we lived in a country, in a rural area. We had a big 19th century house. Parents were not wealthy, and the house was not in beautiful condition. It was a nice looking house, but my parents got a deal on it. It was very, even for the time, it was very inexpensive, and it needed work. And over the last 50 or 60 years, they've kind of fixed it up, and it's a pretty nice house now. But I mean, it took decades and decades. But it was big, and we never had AC. Now this is New York. It got hot, not that hot, but it does get hot and muggy in New York. We never had AC, and of course, it got damn cold, and it was a rickety old house. So we heated the rooms that we used. We had huge blankets in the winter, and we slept in PJs and wore sweaters and all that shit. But it was a big ass house. And you think, why? It was housing. It was so hard to make a house in the 19th century. Everything was everything, all this labor. Well, they did it, and they wanted huge houses, and they made it happen. And they knew, they were smart about a lot of stuff back then. Why did they have such big houses? It certainly was. We never ran out of space in my house. And if you wanted to do a hobby or project or something, there was space for you to do it. And people had their own rooms. It was pretty damn nice. And this was not, this is that old wiring and old plumbing and old windows and old everything. But it was pretty decent. And if that house was half the size, it would have been a little house, and it would have still been over 1,000 square feet. So, and if it was half the size, it would have sucked. And so I guess I was lucky. I grew up in a rural part of New York and had a big house. But I cannot understand people wanting these little tiny houses. I think you'll go insane. And I just, what the hell do you want me to do? How big houses are too expensive? Well, I've said this before on this channel. I urge people to see if they can get the hell out of Dodge. If you're in a place like Southern California, get the hell out of there. And by the way, I'm a realtor from Southern California. It doesn't help me to have you leave the state. But if house prices are going to be outrageous like this, you're not, and you're on the low end of the economic spectrum, and you're thinking, tiny house is the solution. I don't think it's the solution. They're very expensive. By the way, they're averaging, tiny houses are averaging like $150 per square foot. A single wide or double wide is averaging $30 to $60 per square foot, $60 per square foot. Now, probably higher in Southern California for sure. But it's the ratio. You're talking about an 2, 3, 4 to 1 ratio in square footage. That's crazy. Now I know tiny houses are adorable and they're high quality usually, and yeah, they have to charge a lot because they have to cram all this stuff in a small space. However, a single wide or double wide, you're getting a lot of space for cheap. And I think if you want a house and you can't afford an expensive one, you buy a single or double wide and get over it. Because you gotta ask yourself, why am I buying this tiny house? Am I an elitist? Am I too good for a single wide or double wide? I think you should do some soul searching. But the other thing is, I think you do have to get out. I mean, if you can, some people can't, I know. And if you can't, it's tough for you. I don't know what to tell you. But I think rural pioneering is going to be the thing of the future, where people just get away from these toxic metropolises that, do you really want to live there in the first place? What do you get losing out on by being in this megalopolis? I think you would be much happier going way out into the middle of nowhere and figuring out a life. It's almost like you're in exile, but after 2 or 3 years you probably make friends. Those small communities that need people will be happy to see you, rather than these big communities that don't need people, that you're just another person in traffic in the way, and you're, god damn it, you're trying to get gas and there's a guy at the pump, and you can go into the middle of nowhere and you don't have that. They're happy to see you because they need people. The local church, they don't have enough people going to church, and they'll be happy to see you there. You'll get a special a greeting by these little towns. So I'm promoting getting a reasonably sized fixer-upper in a small town, and starting a new life. And you know, home purchasing shouldn't be this complicated. You shouldn't have to move to some little tiny town. But I think the reality is, if you do that, one, you'll get a deal on a house. Two, people will be happy to see you. It'll be great all the way around. Small town, Norman Rockwell, living the dream in some middle of nowhere place. Yeah, it seems like, oh, I don't want that. That's so uncool. Well, nothing's less cool than paying all your money on rent or mortgage and then getting foreclosed on. Anyway, that's enough from me today. I thank you for listening, and hang in there. More on tiny houses coming up. Bye.